What if the very thing you believe is saving the connection is actually the thing destroying it? You text more, you check in more, you compliment more, you try harder, you give more of your time, your energy, your attention, and somehow, the more you give, the further she drifts. That's not a coincidence. That's not her being complicated. And it's definitely not you being too nice. That right there, that pattern, is one of the most misunderstood psychological dynamics in modern relationships. And today, on Mystique Psychology, we are going to pull it apart, layer by layer, until you understand exactly what's happening, why it's happening, and more importantly, what you can do about it. I'm Lyra, and if you're new here, welcome. This channel exists for one reason: to give you real, honest, psychologically backed insights about human behavior, attraction, and relationships. Not surface level advice, not feel good fluff, the kind of truth that actually changes how you think and how you move. Before we go any further, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. I release new content every week, and if this kind of deep dive psychology is what you're looking for, I don't want you to miss a single video. Now, let's get into it. Here's the scenario most men find themselves in at some point. Things start well. She's warm. She's engaged. She's reaching out. The energy feels mutual, exciting, full of possibility. And then, slowly, something shifts. Her replies get shorter. The enthusiasm fades. She's still there, but something feels different. Something feels cooler. And what does he do? He tries harder. He sends a longer message to compensate for her shorter one. He asks more questions. He checks in more frequently. He makes himself more available. He tries to recreate that initial spark through sheer effort and presence. And here's the part that no one talks about. The part that makes this so painful. He genuinely believes he's doing the right thing because everything he's been told by culture, by movies, by well-meaning friends says that if you care, you show it. You fight for it. You don't give up. You try harder. But what if that advice, as well-intentioned as it is fundamentally misaligned with how human psychology actually works? What if the very act of trying harder is the thing that's pushing her away? That's what we're exploring today, and I want to warn you up front. Some of what I'm about to say is going to feel uncomfortable. It might challenge beliefs you've held for years. It might even make you a little defensive. That's okay. Stay with it. Because the discomfort is where the growth lives. We're going to cover 3 core psychological principles today. 1, scarcity creates value, and why constant availability quietly kills attraction. 2, overinvesting too early, and how it accidentally repositions you in her mind. And 3, self-respect as the most powerful signal of attraction, and what it really means to stop negotiating your own worth. By the time we reach the end of this video, you won't just understand why pulling back works. You'll understand the deeper psychological machinery behind attraction itself. Let's begin. Why constant availability quietly destroys attraction. Let's start with a fundamental truth about human psychology that most people understand intellectually but fail to apply emotionally. People value what feels scarce. This isn't new information. You've probably heard it before in the context of business, economics, marketing, but it applies with equal force to human attraction, maybe even more so. Think about it this way. Imagine your favorite restaurant, the one you love. Now imagine that restaurant was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never had a wait, always had your table ready, and never ran out of anything on the menu. Would you still value it the same way? Probably not. Now contrast that with the restaurant that's only open 4 nights a week, always has a line out the door, and occasionally sells out of the best dishes. How do people feel about that one? They plan around it. They talk about it. They feel lucky when they get a reservation. Same quality, different perception because of availability. Now I know you are not a restaurant, and I'm not suggesting you treat human relationships as a transactional game, but what I am saying is this. The psychological principle of scarcity is deeply embedded in how human brains assign value, and ignoring that doesn't make you noble. It just makes you less effective. Here's what happens in the brain when something is always available. The brain adapts. It categorizes that thing as stable background, not a priority, not something requiring attention or effort, just there. You've probably experienced this yourself without realizing it. Think about a friend who always texts you first, always initiates, always checks in, and because you know they'll always be there, you stop thinking about them as urgently. You might genuinely care about them, but they don't occupy your mental bandwidth the same way someone more unpredictable does. That's not cruelty. That's how the human brain manages energy and attention. And here's where most men unknowingly set themselves up for failure. When they sense her pulling back, maybe she's texting less, maybe her energy seems lower, their internal alarm goes off. Fear kicks in, and fear-driven behavior looks like this: more texts, more questions, more "are you okay?" more compliments, more effort to prove themselves, more presence. From the outside, it looks like dedication. From the inside of her experience, it registers as pressure, and pressure creates the opposite of desire. Desire grows in space, not in pursuit. Let me give you a concrete picture of what this looks like in practice. Imagine two men, both interested in the same woman, both genuinely good men with real qualities. Man A, the moment she seems distant, doubles his effort, texts more, makes himself available around the clock, always responds within seconds, adjusts his entire schedule around her, tries to fill the space with words and gestures. Man B notices the same shift in her energy, takes a breath, doesn't panic. He focuses back on his own life. He goes to the gym. He works on a project he's been putting off. He meets up with friends. He responds when it's convenient, not because he's playing games, but because he's actually living his life. He's warm when they talk, but he's not hovering. Which man creates more curiosity in her mind? Which man does she find herself thinking about more? Which man's attention, when it comes, feels more valuable? You already know the answer. And here's the important distinction I want you to hold on to, because this gets misunderstood constantly. Pulling back is not the same as playing games. It is not about making her anxious on purpose. It is not about ignoring her or being deliberately cold. It is not manipulation. What it actually is, in its truest, healthiest form, is living a life that doesn't orbit around one person. When your life is genuinely full, when you have purpose, goals, friendships, physical discipline, creative pursuits, your availability is naturally not unlimited. Not because you're performing scarcity, because you're actually living. And a life that is genuinely full is genuinely attractive, because it signals to her that your attention is not infinite, that it can be earned, that it has weight. Weight is felt most when it's not constantly pressed against someone. There's another dimension to this that I want you to think about carefully. When you are overly available, constantly in her notifications, constantly initiating, constantly filling the silence, you are actually doing something that hurts your connection without realizing it. You are removing the opportunity for her to invest. And investment is what builds attachment. If you initiate every conversation, she never has to wonder if she should reach out. If you plan every interaction, she never has to think about creating something for you too. If you provide every bit of emotional momentum, she never has to generate any of her own. And when someone doesn't invest, when they don't participate in building something, they don't feel the same ownership over it. This is why creating intentional space, calm, respectful, undramatic space, often shifts the dynamic entirely. Not because it tricks her, because it rebalances the emotional equation and gives her room to actually choose you. Attraction breathes in space, and most men suffocate it by hovering too close. How you accidentally lower your position without saying a word. There's a specific mistake that happens in the early stages of almost every situation where a man is genuinely interested in a woman. It's subtle, it's well-intentioned, and it reliably backfires. It's called overinvestment. And it looks like this. You meet someone, things click, you feel a genuine connection, and because you're a thoughtful person, because you actually care, you start doing more than the situation requires. You respond to her messages faster than you respond to anyone else. You rearrange your schedule to be available when she is. You're already thinking about where this could go, long-term, serious, real, while you're still in the early getting to know you phase. You're mentally 3 chapters ahead of where the story actually is, and you believe this reflects maturity, intentionality, emotional readiness. But here's what it actually communicates, not through your words, but through your energy and behavior. I've already decided I need this. You have all the power here, and the moment that signal lands, the dynamic shifts, not because she's calculating, not because she's playing games, because human beings are psychologically wired to respond to perceived value. And when you communicate through your pace and your behavior that you've already fully invested before she has, you lower your own perceived value in the dynamic. This is the painful irony of overinvestment. The more you give before she's invested equally, the less valuable your giving feels. Let me illustrate this with something you've probably experienced in a different context. Imagine someone gives you an extremely thoughtful, elaborate birthday gift for your birthday before you've even become close friends, before you've built the kind of relationship where that depth of gesture feels proportionate. Does it feel warm and lovely? Or does it feel a little heavy, a little uncomfortable, like something is off in the balance? That discomfort you feel is the same discomfort she feels when emotional investment comes too fast, too heavy, before the foundation has actually been built. Early stages of attraction are meant to have a certain lightness, a certain playful uncertainty, a certain I'm interested but I'm not sure yet energy that creates natural tension and momentum. When you overinvest early, you collapse that tension prematurely. You skip the stage where curiosity and desire build organically. You move from zero to intensity without the gradual ascent that makes intensity feel earned. And once that tension is gone, once she already knows without question that she has your full attention and emotional commitment, her brain relaxes. The pursuit energy disappears, and with it, often, so does her excitement. Now, here's something even more uncomfortable that I need you to sit with. Overinvestment is almost always driven by fear, not love, not confidence. Fear that if you don't move fast enough, you'll lose her. Fear that someone else will step in. Fear that if you don't make your intentions crystal clear immediately, she'll misread the situation. Fear that the window of opportunity is closing and you need to act now. And what does fear do to your behavior? It creates urgency. And urgency, in the context of attraction, lowers perceived value almost instantly. Calm confidence is attractive. Urgency signals scarcity, anxiety, and those two things send completely opposite messages about who you are and where you stand. Here's the shift I want you to make, and this requires genuine self-awareness. Ask yourself honestly in this early stage of connection, whose pace am I actually moving at? Are you moving at a pace that feels natural to both of you? Or are you moving at the pace your anxiety is dictating? Because there's a massive difference between I'm genuinely excited about this person and I'm enjoying getting to know them, and I'm terrified of losing this person and I'm working overtime to lock this in. One of those energies is magnetic, the other one is quietly repelling. The practical application here is something called emotional pacing. Pacing doesn't mean being cold. It doesn't mean withholding genuine warmth or interest. It means allowing the investment to grow in proportion to what she's matching. When she invests, you invest. When she opens up, you open up. When she initiates, you reciprocate. You're not holding back out of strategy. You're staying in alignment with the actual pace of the connection. This communicates something powerful without a single word. I'm not desperate for this. I'm here, I'm interested, but my life is full and my time is valuable. You can earn more of my depth by showing me yours. That's not a game, that's emotional intelligence. And here's what becomes possible when you actually practice this. She starts to invest more because there's space for her to do so. She starts to initiate more because you haven't taken over all the momentum. She starts to wonder about you more because you haven't handed over every piece of yourself in the first 2 weeks. And wondering is where attraction lives. The men who understand this, the ones who can genuinely like a woman and still move at a measured pace, these are the men who create connections that actually last. Because they never had to pretend. They never had to perform. They simply understood that restraint is not the opposite of desire. It's the expression of self-respect in the presence of desire. Stop negotiating your worth to keep someone around. This is the section most men skip, whether they're watching a video, reading an article, or having a conversation with a mentor, because this section requires the most honesty. Not about her, about you. Let me ask you something direct, and I want you to actually think about it before you move past it. Do you move like a man who respects himself? Not do you feel like one, not do you believe you are one, do you move like one? Because there is a significant gap for many men between how they see themselves internally and how they actually behave when they're emotionally invested in someone. Here's what low self-respect actually looks like in dating. And notice how subtle and normalized most of these are. You tolerate inconsistent behavior without saying anything. You accept last-minute cancellations and rearrange yourself without expressing that it's not okay. You overlook mixed signals because you'd rather have some version of her than face the uncertainty of calling it out. You over-explain your intentions again and again, hoping that more clarity will create more connection. You give chances that haven't been earned. You continue investing in the hope that consistency will eventually be rewarded with reciprocity, and you tell yourself you're being patient. But here's the honest truth underneath that patience. It's not patience. It's fear wearing the mask of patience. Fear that if you set a standard, she'll decide you're not worth the effort. Fear that if you stop chasing, the door will close permanently. Fear that having requirements will make you seem difficult, demanding, or less desirable. So you make yourself smaller, more accommodating, more available, more forgiving than the situation deserves, and you call it strength. But accommodation without reciprocity is not strength. It is the quiet erosion of self-respect, and she can feel it happening, even if she can't name it, even if she never says a word about it. Here's a principle I want you to carry with you beyond this video. A woman is not drawn to a man who is seeking her approval. She is drawn to a man who knows his worth, whether she chooses him or not. Read that carefully. Whether she chooses him or not. That last part is where most men fall apart, because they've tied their sense of value to the outcome. If she chooses him, he is valuable. If she doesn't, he isn't. But that's backwards. That's conditional self-worth. And conditional self-worth is one of the most unattractive energies a person can carry, because it makes every interaction a performance, an audition, a test that you're desperately trying to pass. The man who has genuine, unconditional self-respect doesn't need to pass her test. He has his own standards. He shows up fully when it feels balanced, and when it doesn't feel balanced, he adjusts. Not dramatically, not coldly, not as punishment, but calmly, quietly, from a place of internal alignment. Now, here's the part that will be the most uncomfortable for some of you. Some of you don't pull back because you're afraid of what you might discover if you do. Think about that for a moment. If you stop texting first for a week, will she reach out? If you stop initiating plans, will she suggest something? If you stop carrying the entire emotional weight of the connection, will she pick up any of it? You might already know the answer, and that answer terrifies you. So instead of creating the space to find out, instead of allowing reality to reveal itself, you keep filling the silence. You keep initiating. You keep carrying it all. You'd rather stay busy, maintaining the illusion of connection, than sit still and face the possibility that the connection is one-sided. I understand that. It's a deeply human response. But it is not a move that serves you. A man with genuine self-respect can handle silence. He can handle uncertainty. He can handle the possibility of rejection, because his identity is not attached to any single person's response. His value doesn't require her validation to exist. And paradoxically, that is what makes him attractive. Because a man whose sense of self doesn't depend on her response feels completely different from a man whose every behavior is quietly asking, "Is this enough? Am I enough? Are we okay?" One feels grounded, the other feels needy, and she will feel the difference before she can ever explain it. So what does self-respect actually look like in practice? What does it mean to pull back from a place of genuine internal alignment rather than ego or manipulation? It means you stop double texting when she doesn't reply, not because you're punishing her, because you have other things worth your attention. It means you stop over-explaining yourself every time there's a quiet moment. Because you don't need to justify your value constantly, it means that if she cancels plans repeatedly, you don't rearrange yourself indefinitely. You note the pattern. You respond to it honestly. It means that if she's not matching your energy, not in the exact same way, but in some meaningful way, you recognize that as information and you act on it, not dramatically, not with a speech, not with an ultimatum, with calm adjustment. Because here's the truth about how self-respect functions in attraction. When you respect yourself, you stop working to maintain access to someone who isn't choosing you equally. And that shift, that quiet but unmistakable shift in your energy, changes everything. Some women, when they feel that shift, will step up. They'll invest more, they'll initiate more, they'll become curious about the version of you that doesn't seem to need their constant approval. Others won't. They'll simply fade. And both of those outcomes, as uncomfortable as one of them is, give you something essential: clarity. Clarity about whether this connection is real or one-sided. Clarity about whether you're building something mutual or auditioning for a role she hasn't offered. Clarity about where to direct your energy. You don't need endless analysis of her behavior. You don't need to decode every text message. You don't need reassurance every few days to know where things stand. You need standards and the willingness to enforce them. Before we go further, if Mystique Psychology is giving you a new way to think about attraction and behavior, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button right now. It genuinely helps this channel grow, and it means more content like this keeps coming. We're building something real here, so if this is your kind of psychology, come be a part of it. Now, let's keep going. Quick pause. If you're still here, I want you to know that means something. Most people click off long before this point. The fact that you're still watching tells me you're actually serious about understanding yourself and how you show up in relationships. That's exactly who this channel is for. So if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Turn on notifications and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Now let's finish this. Let me leave you with something that might be the most important thing I've said in this entire video. Most men don't lose women because they aren't good enough. They lose them because they try too hard to prove they are. Read that again. Sit with it. You've been told your whole life, try harder, love harder, show more, give more, fight for it, don't give up. And while genuine effort matters, while showing up with intention and consistency matters, uncontrolled effort without self-awareness weakens your position every single time, because when you overchase, you are communicating something without realizing it. You are telling her, I need this to work. I need you to choose me. My sense of stability depends on your response. And the moment she feels that quiet desperation underneath all the effort, the power dynamic shifts completely. Here's the final truth I want you to walk away with from Mystique Psychology today. Pulling back is not a technique. It is not a manipulation. It is not a power move. It is the natural result of a man who has decided that his peace, his time, and his self-respect are not things he is willing to sacrifice just to maintain access to someone who isn't choosing him equally. When you truly embody that, not as a performance, but as a genuine internal reality, your entire energy changes. The way you text changes. The way you show up changes. The way you respond to her pulling back changes. The way you hold space for yourself changes. You stop trying to rescue connections that aren't meeting you halfway. You stop performing for approval. You stop negotiating your worth. And here's what happens when you do. Some people step forward. They rise to match your energy. They invest more, initiate more, show up with more presence and intention. Others step back, and in stepping back, they give you the most valuable gift they possibly could: clarity. Because you cannot build something real on a foundation of one-sided effort. You cannot create genuine intimacy through performance. You cannot sustain real attraction by constantly auditioning. The woman who is right for you will not require you to overperform to keep her attention. You will still lead. You will still show interest. You will still invest genuinely, meaningfully, but it will feel mutual. It will feel chosen. It will feel like both people are building something together, not one person carrying it alone. If you feel like you are constantly in an audition for her approval, you are already out of position. The strongest move you can make sometimes is the quietest one. Not cold, not ego-driven, not a strategy, restraint, rooted in self-respect. Because your emotional state should not be controlled by another person's texting habits. Your identity should not live or die on one person's response. Your life should not pause, waiting for someone else to validate it. Build a life that has weight. Move with intention. Hold your standards, not as walls, but as signals of who you are and what you require. And the right person will not be driven away by that. They will be drawn to it. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced this shift where you pulled back, genuinely focused on yourself, and watched the dynamic change entirely? Or did you pull back and realize in the silence that she was never equally invested to begin with? Either experience is valid. Either experience is worth sharing. Drop it in the comments below. Be honest with me. Tell me what happened. The good, the painful, all of it. I read through these personally, and I want this to be a real conversation, not just a one-way stream of advice into the void, because the real growth never comes from someone telling you what to think. It comes from you reflecting on your own experience with new tools to understand it. And that's exactly what Mystique Psychology is here to give you. If this video added something to your understanding, if it challenged you in a way that felt productive, please share it with someone who needs it today. You might not know who in your life is silently going through this exact situation, wondering why the harder they try, the worse things get. This might be the video that shifts something for them. Subscribe to Mystique Psychology if you haven't already. New content every week. Real psychology, no fluff. I'll see you in the next one.